Let's call these the Pajama Diaries. I was working on this track in Logic, and it's just like the beginnings of a dance cut. And I'm using this I'm using this Logic preset here. This hi hat specifically. This thing TR-909 rolling drum machine, and I want to replace this with something of my own. Basic framework. I don't know. This was less about me making a hot joint and more about me actually programming this sound. This Corrigan one organ, using a whole bunch of dance cuts. I'm sure you recognize that thing. I'm just create a new track, drag this down, and delete this. I don't need that anymore. Um, and so, wow, electric piano is not where I'm going. I'm gonna use Serum. Uh, just that's kind of my go-to these days. I could use anything, but I'm gonna turn off the oscillators and just use noise. And so even the default preset, if you listen to it, it almost sounds like a hi-hat already. I'm just gonna go through this analog presets. There's one called Bright White. I'm gonna use that. And so if we filter, use like a high cut filter here. I'll do high 24 just for the sake of argument, and put that on the noise so that we've got something happening. You can hear almost immediately it jumps out, and if I add like a huge amount of resonance, I can kind of tune that thing. And so already I've kind of got a thing. I'm gonna use a one shot here, just curious to see what happens. Okay, and I believe that's giving me a more consistent starting point, even though my random was already down, so it's probably not. Psychologically, I feel like that's doing something. So that's what I'm going with. I'm gonna take my LFO and kind of create a point. And if I do this on my level, you'll see that I can kind of control how short or long that thing is. If I turn this off, oh wow. I'm sorry, Logic does all of this. They're doing too much. I want all of this off. I don't need reverb and whatever they're doing. I'll figure out my own. Um, control freak. Control freak. All right. So you see, I can easily kind of control the length. I'm gonna add some released, like a longer release on this. So just like that, I've got myself a hi-hat. Let's see how it works in my song. And then I'll probably mold it and make it more personalized and fit it to my track a little bit better. Remember before, like when I had the resonance way up, that was how I tuned it. So just like that, got myself a hi-hat that kind of really cuts through, you know. I can go off and process this thing. We can It doesn't really need compression, but you know, compression because we always we want more. And give it some widening using this hyper. I can do distortion, which will really make it kind of feel more like a hi-hat. Flanger, phaser, chorus, delay, compression, reverb, EQ, filter, all of these things can work. Probably do some distortion, maybe compression, and some hyper or chorusing or something to widen it and kind of spread it out a little bit because I may or may not want it to be so articulate in our mix. And I'm going to play around with those things right now. So you see I can go from like a sharper point um, to something a little bit more smeary just by spinning this. And of course I can, work on our mix. We'll do the size thing. That'll also do the same kind of thing. Smaller size, kind of consider it like being in a smaller room to a larger washy hall. Even though that's not exactly what's going on there. It's more of a house effect. Please play my video to the end. It helps me. I can monetize the channel. I can bring you guys more free content just like this. If you want to download the preset that I created here, mention it in the comments if you want that, and I'll make it happen. So very subtle. Let me try to exaggerate that. Just so you can hear the difference. I'm going to pull it back to something normal. Less is more in this case. Probably should have done distortion first. I'm going to just move that up top. Control freak kicking in. Sorry about that. It's going to get loud for now. Just because I'm going to dial this thing in and play around with some settings. When I even scroll through some of these presets, they may jump out. So So I can use this LFO right here to modulate my drive, just to kind of add a little bit of more danciness to the dance song. Okay, and chorus will of course smear this, and let's give that a shot. I always kind of like flanger on hi-hats and phasers, but this will give us more smear and dimension. So we can do that, and just for the sake of argument, I'm going to do something that Virtual Riot is a big fan of. Kind of learned this trick from his feed. You turn this, oops, that goes all the way up. These two go all the way down. pull this one up and then I can play with this. I'm just pulling it up so that you can really hear it. It's kind of, I forget what that's called right now, but who cares about the technical term anyway. Let's call it the airplane effect. And I can modulate this so that we get that movement that I was kind of doing manually. I don't know that we really want that here, but I'm just kind of showing you guys some things so you might get some ideas. It doesn't even necessarily need to apply to just this sound. Who knows, maybe you got a pad or something you're working on and you want to incorporate this, or bass. Bass will really work. So that really cuts through. I don't know that I want that effect on this song, but I just felt like teachable moment. Kind of sounds like a phaser. Why don't we try a phaser? So I like that better immediately. Pump up the depth a little bit. Like that. I like that. So I'm using that, and just for the sake of argument, pull down the mix and ease it back in. I like it about there. Delay. I love delay on hi-hats. They always create like some nice confusion, and when you darken the delay with the filter, which I'll get into, and even ping pong, it gets warm and fuzzier. A lot more interesting. Does need compression, but what the heck? I'll just throw it on there just for the sake of argument. If we hit this multi-band, we get that OTT sonic. Okay, and just for the sake of argument, reverb. I'm doing everything else here. I love the subtlety of this. And so there you have it. Pretty much one shot. Uh, you know, I could stand to pull this into my mix. So actually, just for the sake of argument, um, I'm gonna use some of Logic's plugins, just for the sake of argument, just so everybody can follow along. If you have Logic, you can obviously do this. Behaving as if I don't need anything else up there. I can always add it back in if I decide that this isn't working. I'm gonna also add like a little shelf here, just to kind of. The shelf isn't really about boosting this up here. It's really about this little ramp here. And while I could do that with my cue and kind of achieve similar results, just playing around with my cue, give it a little boost. Sometimes I feel like I'm able to really dial it in a little bit better doing it this way. That's cool. And so I might use one band here or two, but I invite you to notice like my approach to this, right? My goal here, wasn't to EQ that last band that I added. It wasn't so much about EQing it. It is about creating the perception, the idea, the feeling that this hi-hat is further away than it is. It's kind of the same way that you would, like, let's say that I was standing somewhere and, close to you, I sound like this. Hey, what's up? But when I get further away, it's, hey, hello, hello, hello. And it sounds muffled and far away. So that's what I kind of did here, is I muffled it and pulled it a little bit further away from us. And so I'll allow you to hear that, the before and after. Those far away. Just sounds a tiny bit further away from us, subtle, but makes a little bit of a difference. And I use one of Logic's distortion. Ooh, Bit Crusher. Now, that's a problem. I love their Bit Crusher. So like that lo-fi vibe. So now I can kind of pull this thing back up into our mix a little bit. I'm gonna just pan it to the side. The lo-fi is actually chopping off some of the highs, but downsampling and using a lower resolution. So I'm fighting that. Let's see if I can kind of bring back some of the highs with EQ, but I'll probably have to do it through the resolution and the downsampling. I may EQ this a whole different way right now. just because the vibe changed so much. But enough of that. I play with that on my time. But I hope you got something out of this. And just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna just bring that Ibiza track back. Let me see. I can copy this. And oops. And this is where we're at now. Much more pleasing. As always, love excels all. Peace and blessings. Please subscribe, like, share, etc. Comment. It's all good. Peace. Love.